get into today's business. Right, welcome those who have just entered. Let me share my screen, and then I believe my screen is up. So before we get into today's business, are there any questions, any follow-up questions based on what we did yesterday and the day before yesterday? Nada. All right, so let's go ahead and let's perform some operations on our database. So as you can see, yesterday we fairly did not much, but we did something very important. And then today I want us to perform some operations using SQL, using SQL, such operations such as creating a record, reading records, updating a particular record, and then deleting a record. All of this using SQL. So I just want to quickly ask, guys, is there anyone who is new to SQL here? Anyone who's new to SQL or who has never done SQL before? Great stuff. So it means we are at least knowledgeable about SQL. So let's come back. Let's add some few buttons on our design. So the first button that I'm going to add, we won't be reading. We have already done the reading part by selecting all from a particular table. So we will go straight to creating a record. So let's name this button insert or create, whatever, and then we'll say create a new record. And then similarly, I am going to need to have a button that will update a particular record. So button update, so I'll say update record. And then lastly, I will have a delete button. So this will be a button delete. So we are going to delete. Great. So let us start with the inserting or creation of a new record. So creation of a new record using SQL. Okay, so let me also get my Delphi query builder somewhere, and then let's perform some queries and test them out before we go back to C++. So select a database and then create. Okay, let's increase the font size a little bit. Okay, so let's see. So we want to create a new record, and to create a new record we want to insert it inside our table. So let's quickly just see what table we were working with yesterday. So it's a rangers. Let's see rangers, and then it has the following fields: ranger ID, ranger name, ranger surname, rank, and then date of appointment, and then the camp that the ranger is reporting to. Okay, and then there is something new there. Okay, it's fine. So we have 22 rangers. So if you can just look at the pattern already, if you look at the pattern here, is each ranger has his or her own ranger ID. And if you can look at all these ranger IDs, they are put in a sequential order. So it means if we are to insert a new ranger, at least let us try to follow the same sequence which is set out or set up by the database and the table. So it means if we are to add a new record, that new record should have a ranger ID of 23. So it means every time we are supposed to insert or create a new record, we first have to get the last ID which was there in the table. And to do that, we will do something like select max of ranger ID from rangers. And then this should give us the 22. Problem solving. Okay. This should give us this 22. So it means if we are to insert a new record, we have to take this last number or this maximum number and add 1 to it so that the next coming ranger can have an ID of 23. Great stuff. So for us to do that, it means we are going to need to have a separate data set which is going to be responsible for executing this query for us. And then from that data set, we are going to be able to retrieve this maximum ID, and then we increment it by 1, and then we use probably the same data set or another separate data set to insert that record in our table. Awesome. So today I am going to introduce to you a new component of a DBGO, a new TADO component. And because we are going to be doing creating or inserting, updating and deleting, I want us to focus on a component called ADO command. ADO command. And then I will also just introduce another data set which is going to be just a temporary data set for us. So I'm going to name this ADO dataset temp, and then we also have an ADO command, which I'll just leave it as ADO command. Okay, so ultimately we are going to use these two guys. This one is going to be responsible for getting the maximum ID number for us, and then this one is going to help us perform the updating or the deleting or the inserting of records. And then what is an ADO command? Let's press F1 there. An ADO command is a component that is used to issue commands against a data store. But what kind of commands? Let's see if it's mentioned there. Let's see, data definition language, but I don't want us to talk about that. Okay, it's not mentioned anywhere. So I am going to pose it to you as a question. Do you guys know what we call a DML? DML.
Sir?
Yes?
Is it not data manipulation language?
Exactly. And then what is it exactly? Like data manipulation language, what is it exactly?
sets of commands that help us manipulate data.
Wonderful. Okay, so a DML is a data manipulation language, which is a set of commands that will assist us in manipulating the data in the database. So now, what are these set of commands which we refer to as DML statements? Number one, it will be the update statement, the delete statement, as well as the insert statement. Right. Please, guys, please, whenever you use an ADO command, this is the only operation that is going to be able to do. A ADO command can only run queries which are of DML. Ne? You can only update, delete, insert, or alter. You know those commands where they just return a line which says one row affected or whatever. Those are the commands that can be executed by an ADO command. Please, if I see you writing a select statement inside an ADO command, I will stop marking your script. I will immediately stop marking your script. Ne? Because this one can only execute update statement, delete statement, and the insert statement. And then a data set can only execute a select statement. I hope you are writing this down somewhere because I think I have mentioned this in the web test. A data set can only execute a select statement. Why? Because the query that it should execute should return what? A set of data. An ADO command can only execute an update or a delete or an insert statement, because what is going to be returned there is just a single line of a message that says number of records affected. So it is not a result set. It is just the number of rows affected which is being returned. So please note that down, guys. And then maybe while we are here, although we are going to cover this in much detail in the coming class, I think I should also just touch on the ADO query. I should also touch on the ADO query. So now, a little bit of revision. This one, only select statement. This one, only update, delete, and insert. This one, any. So this one is a combination of this and that. So with this one, you can run any type of a query that you have. Is it clear, guys? Please note that down. Please. Anyway, let's continue with today's task. So we have a data set there, and then we have an ADO command there. So great stuff. Let's go ahead and start inserting a record using SQL. So now we have data set. I think it was named temp. So I'm going to say dmod ADODS temp, and then first thing first, I need to hook it up to a connection. So I'm going to say it should get the connection from the ADO connection component which we have. Okay, let's just save in here. Save. Let's see if the error is still there. ADODS temp. What did I name it? ADODS temp. Looks fine to me. Okay. No member. What am I missing here? What? Mod there. Okay, dmod is there. ADO DS10 is there. And then connection. I don't know why it was crying, but anyway. So first I need to hook up my component with a connection that already exists. Okay, so second thing, I want to make sure that it is not in a mode of executing anything. So I'm going to make sure that this data set is closed. You can also say dmod ADODS temp if is equals to false. You can also do that. Okay, so now that we are here, we are going to write or give it a command text, and our command text should be the one that is going to get the maximum ranger ID. So what we are going to do now is we are going to say dmod ADODS temp, and what is the query that we want to give it? Our string called select maximum ranger ID from ranges. And then now that the query is available, we can go and execute the query. So we now say dmod ADODS temp, and then we open our data set. Now when we do open, this executes the select statement. Now that this is executed, it means there is a result that is available within this data set. So to get that result, we have to say dmod ADODS temp filled by name. Now let me go back to quick builder quickly, guys, and then I just want to show you something. Ranges. Now, do you see the following headings there? Ranger ID, name, surname, rank, and whatsoever. These are filled names. These are filled names. Now, at this point, I also assume that you now know how to use the get filled by number function. You know, the famous get filled by number. And there is a method as well pertaining to data sets which can help us get this filled by numbers. So I'm sure somewhere you may have seen that you can be able to use filled by name, correct? There is also a method called filled by number. You can use this if you are not sure of the name of your columns. For example, if I say field number 1, I know I am referring to ranger ID. If I say field number 2, I'm referring to name. Field number 3, I am referring to surname. So in this case, I can use field by number. Why? Because I do not know what is the name of my field that will come from this query. If I can quickly show you on query builder, execute. Do you see how the field name is given? It just says expression 1000. Of course, we can do some things like aliases and say max ID there, so that now our column can have the max ID name. But now if you forget to do this, it means if you want to retrieve this value, you are going to have to write expression 1000 when you are using get filled by name. So you're probably going to write something like expression 1000, because that's the default alias name given to a field which you have used an aggregate function on. But now let's say you also forget this expression 1000. So you can just come and say, look, I can get my field using a number, and since it's only one field, then I'm going to only have field number 1, which will refer to the very same field that is there. And then now this will return, yes.
So what if you said get field by name and then you assign a column alias by there?
Yes, then it will also, let's say now on your query you had something like max ID. You had something like this. So it means when you want to retrieve this using a name, you are going to use max ID because you gave your column an alias called max ID.
Okay, sir. I understand.
Great. I think maybe we should just stick to this and not show you the field by number just to avoid some confusion. Okay, so now at this point, this is going to give us this max ID as a type of a variant. There's a data type called variant, meaning it varies. The value could be anything. It could either be an string or int, blah blah blah. So now at this point, we really have to mention how we want to retrieve this max ID. Do we want to retrieve it as an ANSI string or as a boolean or as currency or datetime and whatnot? Now, my suggestion is if you are going to do something with this max ID, rather have it as the exact appropriate data type. But if it's just going to be for displaying purposes, always just take it as an ANSI string. So now in our case, we want to increment this max ID by 1. So rather let me take it as an integer. So now this line of code is going to retrieve this 22 as an integer, meaning then I have to save whatever that is coming from this line into my local variable. So I will say max ID is equals to this whole line. So the 22 gets stored in there. And then you might as well, if you want, increment it by 1 on the same line, or you can now come to the next line and say max ID plus plus. Then it means now we will have a value 23 or whatever the case may be, depending on what was retrieved here. So here we assume we had 22. So great, now it means we are ready to insert a new record because we have a new ranger ID. Actually, let me write this as ranger ID. We have a new ranger ID. Great, so now it's time for us to write a DML statement for inserting a new record. So we have an insert into, and then we can specify our columns there. Ranger ID, name. Okay, we can have the surname, we can have the rank, and then the date appointed, and then lastly the report count. So let's see, insert into what? Into a table called rangers, and then these are the columns which we are going to insert values in. And then we can come and say the values are, then now it means we are going to hard code these values exactly as we may want. So value 1, value 2, value 3, value 4, value 5, value 6. So some of these are not strings, but anyway, so a field such as date appointed is not a string, so we are not going to use symbol codes. So for a date, usually we use a hash and then we write the date in between. For example, today is the 17th of November. So we can say before I write the date. It's going to be very imperative, guys, for us to see the format which is used in the database before we can start typing our date there. But anyway, let's quickly just check that. Ranges, and then okay, so it says the year first and then the month followed by the day. Awesome. So it means we are going to say 2021 slash 11 slash 17. So the dates we use the hash, not the single quotes. If I have time, I'll have to add this on the web test. But anyway, let's continue. So this is basically the structure that we are going to have. Which name can I use? Okay, doesn't matter. But this is the structure that we are going to use. So I'm going to copy this code unless you want us to test. So I'll say test name, and sorry, the first one is ranger ID, so let's have 23. Test, which is the name, test surname, which is the surname, rank, we'll just say field, the date appointed, which is that one, and then the report camp, can just say KPLET. Okay, let's try to run this. Syntax error, insert into statement. Let's see, insert into table values. Okay, let's cut it out and then let's try. Okay, no problems there. So I'm not sure why it's complaining about the columns, unless if I messed up one column name. But now I'm not getting any errors, so it seems it was able to execute. So let's go and check the rangers table if that data is there. So can you see we were able to insert this data into our table? So now it means since the query is working, we can bring the query inside our C++ builder. So now it means when this is going to execute, we are no longer going to get 22, we are going to get 23, and then this will be number 24. So now let's create a local variable which is going to hold our DML statement. So I'm going to say my DML is equals to my query, which is that, and then I make a space there, DML plus equals to values, put it there, and then now you will notice that I cannot keep hard coding. I cannot keep hard coding these values on my insert statement. Rather, I want my values to come from somewhere. For example, I can have some T edits there, where we are going to enter those information. So I'll have edt1, edt2. Okay, it's the name, the surname, name, surname, the report camp there. Oh, I forgot name. Oh, and the rank, yes, and the rank. So let's quickly give this a name. So edt name, I can leave it as blank, and then this one edt name, I can leave it as blank, and then edt rank. Why do I keep forgetting rank? Edt rank, and then edt report camp. we are going to give a user the chance to enter this, and then the date you can just ignore. We can just get the current date, ne? Or we can somewhere have a date picker there, a date picker there, and then this is going to allow the user to pick a date, ne? Date picker 1. Great. So now instead of us hard coding these values, we want these values to come from the user. We want these values to come from the user. So now we are going to get into a concept called parameters. Parameters. Now, assuming that you have done the subject DSO.
Sorry, sir.
Alain, yes?
Before you move on, can you please go back a little bit?
Little bit.
Yes, sir. That's great. No, I want to see the code, sir, please.
Oh, the code, yeah.
So, is it a way of coding that you must do the DML plus and then you say insert into ranges?
Oh no, okay, no, this is my local ANSI variable or object. So I'm just doing this so that I can concatenate the entire DML query there. I'm just saying on top of this insert into ranges, I also want to put this line. That's why I am concatenating.
Oh.
Otherwise, you maybe could do something long like this. You see,
okay.
You can do something long like that.
Okay, so thank you.
All right. Yeah. I saw something very interesting. Can you just check there at the bottom? Because we executed a DML query. It now says this is a DML query. I did not know that. Okay, so anyway, we are going to do a concept called parameters. I was about to ask that in DSO, are you doing DSO 23B? Not now. 23B, BT. Are you doing it now?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay, for those who are doing it, I think it is chapter 1 where they are introducing you to something called a bind variable. Ever heard the term?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, so a bind variable is a variable which is created initially, and then at a later stage it can be able to store a value. Correct. Now, when you store that value using a bind variable, you use something like the colon there, the colon, before you use, I think it's also the site, a, and then you can give it a value there. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember seeing something like this somewhere. That colon that shows that this is a bind variable, and then we are going to give it a value at a later stage. So now, even with our query, we are able to say, look, even though I want to execute this query, I do not have these values as of yet. I can give them to you at a later stage. And then to do that, we are going to say, okay, please take the values as parameters. Please these queries or these values as parameters. So meaning in place of 23, we are going to put a parameter called RI or whatever name that you are comfortable with. So this RI acts as a binding variable. So whatever value that is going to come into this variable, and then it can now insert the values by going inside this variable and get the value that will be assigned to RI. Similarly to here, we can say we are going to put in a name. So we can say this is going to be N or whatever name that you are comfortable with. But now what I want you guys to take note of is this column there. to say this is a binding variable and it is going to receive a value at a later stage. So now this bind variable acts as a parameter to values. Was that clear to everyone? Was that clear to everyone?
Sir, please repeat.
Okay. So the concept of parameters works like this. First, we need to write our query. But now you may find that at that particular time of writing our query, we do not have the values as of yet. So now what do? We say, okay, let us put bind variables initially there. And then at a later stage, we can give these bind variables some values which can be inserted into our table. So to put a bind variable, we simply put a colon and then the name of that bind variable. So here you can choose any characters or any name that you want to put, as long as when you are going to replace these bind variables with values, you can still recall the names which you have used in place of your parameters. So currently I said in place of the ranger ID, I simply just want to put a bind variable which at a later stage is going to receive a value that is going to put there. Similarly for name, say name, field, date appointed, and the report came. Now, after writing my DML statement like this, if you look there on the right, it actually says parameters. And then it says to define your parameters, meaning to give values to these parameters, click on the left hand side. So if I click on there, all my bind variables will come there. Is maybe in Dalamo, and then the surname there is Ndovu, and then the field there we can say is filled, and then the date appointed we can write today's day. I'm not sure if this will allow date to get the current date, and then the report camp we can write something like KPSAT like that. And then these values there, they will come and replace our bind variables which we would have defined during our writing of a DML statement. Does it make sense?
No, sir. Were you writing something?
Yes, I was writing something here.
On my side, the screen just freeze. But where you mentioned.
Oh. Oh, okay, I'm still sharing. Is that the case with everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you see this window that maybe let me bring it closer there. Can you see where my cursor is?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Can you see where my cursor is right now?
It's fine, sir. No.
Oh, okay. Okay, so here's what I was saying. I said these are our bind variables, right? These are our parameters, our bind variables. So now, if we go to the right section of our query builder, there is a section called parameters. just that I've enlarged this. But yes, there's a section called parameters, and then at the bottom it says to define your parameters, you have to click on the left, meaning you have to click on the left hand side, and then upon clicking on the left hand side, all my parameters appeared. And then on the right hand side, this is where I can give a value to each parameter or to each bind variable. So 24 will be assigned to Ri, and then it will replace Ri on this query there. Similarly for N will be replaced by Ndalamo, and then we will have Ndalamo there. And then S will be replaced by Ndlovu, and then we will have Ndlovu there. And so on and so on and so on. Are you all catching that? Hello guys. Hello. Are we all catching that? What's happening? Please guys, this concept is very important. It's very important that you understand this concept. Are we
Yes, sir.
are we
Sir, sir.
together or yes?
What happened with the dates? Sir, can you please explain the dates thing?
With this date?
Yeah.
Or this is just a function for SQL or MS SQL to retrieve the current date. For example, if we do something like select date, it's going to return the current date. You see, 2021 11/17.
Oh, okay, sir.
So here I was saying it must replace DA with the current date. Yeah, so let me see if I can get you that link. SQL MS Access functions. These are all the functions that we can use in Query Builder, guys. So I'm going to copy this link and then I'm going to paste it in there. So please associate yourself with some of those functions in there, because some will help you in your assessment. Okay. And then where were we? Insert statement, it's gone. And I did not save my query, but it's fine. But now I want you to look at the pattern that we did, right? So first we wrote a DML statement, insert into ranges, and then values, and then we did our parameters there, colon, name of the parameter, 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 colon, data pointed, name of the parameter, colon, report camp. Okay. So that is what we did. So now we are going to take this and then we are going to replace all these parameters with the values there before we can execute. So it's query first, and then give parameters some values, and then that's when we can execute. Okay, we can try. Let's see. You must enter a value in the ranges that I. This is the value. Oh, since while I. Okay, 24. Name is done, and then say name is Lovu, and then what's that? RA's rank. So it's filled. So this one I would say take the current date by calling the date function, and then report camp I will say KPSAT, and then let's try to execute. There is a data type mismatch probably here on the date. Oh well, okay, let's just write 2021 11/17. Let's hope that's the case. Okay, so it means it was able to execute, no errors. So let's just copy that, and then let's see. You see it's now added there using parameters. It's now added there. So let's go ahead and quickly perform this using C++. So we have our query. I am going to replace this line with the one with parameters. What did I do? Okay, this one I do not want. And then bring this here. Great. Okay, guys, again, important, because I am concatenating my SQL, pay attention to the space which I have left there, because if I don't leave a space there, it's going to concatenate values to ranges, and then you are going to get some errors. Ne? So make sure that when you go to the next line, you leave a space there to avoid errors. So now the step that we took was to write a query, and then the second step was to give our parameters some values. So to give our parameters some values, here's what we are going to do. We are working with a ADO component, command, and then we said this is only used to execute DML statements. Ne? Great. So an ADO command, let's start with it. First thing first, we need to give it a connection. Then I'll say it should get the connection from the existing connection of ADO connection. And then I can start giving it a command to execute. So I'll say dmod ADO command. And then where do I put the query? On the command text. On the command text property. So I'll say it is equal to DML, of which DML is my query that I want us to execute. And then now it's time to execute the query. Now, an ADO command does not have active open. If I can quickly show you, you see there is no active, there is also no open. So how do we execute a query using the ADO command? By using the execute function. Execute method. Great. So it means that it's going to execute this behind the scenes, and then we then have to check if the information indeed has been added to the table. So you can just at this point make a nice show message or a message dialog, whichever the question may be, and say one record successfully inserted. And then how can we then see the record? Obviously, if we refresh the database grid, it will not bring up that record. So usually what we do is to switch off this data set of sightings, because that's where we have inserted. So we just switch it off, and then we switch it back on so that it can re-execute the select statement again. So let's go ahead and see if we have successfully achieved that mission. Okay, so here it is, it's up and running. Oh, look at my dumb self. Okay, sorry about that, guys. And I was busy emphasizing on this. I was saying, you remember the first step that we did was to write a query with bind variables. The second step was to replace the bind variables with values, and then the next step was to execute. But we skipped the second step. I'm sorry about that. So let's quickly go to the second step, which comes before the execution. Okay, so now we want to do what? We want to give values to these parameters. Then we are going to say ADO command, and then we are going to say parameters, and then we are going to call the method parameter by name, which is written param by name. And then what is the name of the parameter that we want to give a value to? And then that name is Ri. So we say Ri, and then we want to say assign a value. Assign a value to Ri, and then we can say Ri should be the ranger ID which we previously obtained using the query select max, and then we say ranger ID. We repeat this step for all the other parameters. Your command parameters, the second parameter is NA, and then the NA is the name, and then we are going to get the name from this TEdit. So we are going to say edt name dot text, and then we do the same for other parameters, which is su for say name, and then we also say it must get the value from the edt say name, edt say name. Then we repeat again for the RA, which is the rank. Then we say it must get the value from the edt rank. We also do the same for the date appointed, and then we say it must get the value from this date picker which I have added there, this date picker there. Now this date picker, you can either get time or the date. So to get the date from it, we are going to use the property date. To get the time from it, we can use the property time. So it always returns the current date and time. So we are going to say date picker 1, please give us the date chosen. I think it's date time picker 1. Please give us the date. If we wanted the time, we would say time. Then lastly, we can have the report camp RC, which is this one here, and then we can now say get that value from edt. I'm not sure I've given that a name. Report camp dot text. Wonderful. So now our parameters have values coming from these TEdits. Now, sometimes it could be combo boxes. Sometimes we could ask you to enter something using an input box. It will just depend on the question where to get the values which you will replace for these parameters. So for example, this ranger ID, in some instance, we could say generate a random number between this and that. Just giving me a highlight of what to expect. Okay, and then execute, and then let's test it out quickly if we were doing the correct things. No questions? Okay, so let's see. Let's enter some names in there. I already have myself. In this database I am not there, so I'm going to add myself, and then I can choose whatever date. So I'll say the 2nd of November, and then this should be rank. So I am going to say, what is happening? I have I'm short of text boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we seem okay. So let's write field there, and then the report came. Let's say I am in KPLET as well. So let's go ahead and create a new record. See if we have, oh, no errors. So it says one record successfully inserted. So you'll remember after doing so, what did I do? I stopped that data set, and then I also activated it again so that it can perform a select all so that we can see the new results. So now if I press OK and then I go to the end, I should find myself. Nice stuff, hey? Nice stuff. So if you want to avoid this thing of having to scroll down to check, you can just come to your data set after activating it. You can tell it to navigate to the last record by using dmod last, and then automatically it will focus on the last record. That's just about it, ladies and gentlemen, with the inserting. Any questions? Any questions?
Sir,
Yes.
could you please explain like the last lines where you say active false and also true. Why did you say false and after you say
Okay. So what happens here is immediately after we successfully execute this GML, a record is added in the table, correct? But now, because we had already hooked up our data set to this DB grid, we cannot see the results instantly. Like that new line will not be visible. So for it to be visible, what do we have to do? We have to close or deactivate our data set. And then immediately when we reactivate it or when we open it again, what does it do? It goes and it executes this select all from rangers. And then at that point, because there was a new record added, it's also going to pick up that new record which was recently added. And then this last line, what we are now saying is just to say, okay, also navigate to that last record. Move the cursor to that last record so that we can avoid having to scroll up and down inside that DB grid.
okay, sir. So basically every time we insert a record, right, we must have these three lines where we have to set active first, and then after we set true, and also
Yes.
the last line.
Yes, that's correct. Because these three lines help us to see the record which is recently added. And then this one of last, what it basically does, it tells this arrow there. Do you see this arrow? It basically tells it to move to the last record so that we don't have to scroll and check if that value is there or that record is there. So automatically it just takes that record and it moves it to the last so that we can check what the last record is. Questions? We are not going to do the update and the delete because it seems we have run out of time. So this we can cover tomorrow. So pertaining and questions pertaining to insert, are we all fine? Are we all fine? Yeah. Questions, comments? I think I should add this in the summative. It looks nice.
Nice. Nice.
Pardon?
As Carol, you
You're
say you
breaking. Yes, Charlie?
I was saying when you say it looks nice, it looks nice for you. For us, we still need to go through it, understand what's going on, and then provide the logic and so on.
Yeah. But guys, if you have any problems understanding any of this or whatever that we have done, please always ask me. I believe I am always available to answer queries, emails, or discussions posted on Brightspace. Please don't be shy to ask. But this one, I feel like I have to make a plan about it. It looks doable for even for you guys to pass. It looks doable. This one. Maybe I can give it maybe some nice marks, maybe my 7 marks in there. It looks nice. Yeah, it looks nice. Nice bar. Okay, guys, any questions based on what we did? Okay, let's do a quick recap and then let's terminate the session. So now, every time we ask you guys to insert something into the database, okay, first thing first, you have to make sure that you get an ID which is the highest in that particular table. So if we look at our tables, okay, obviously now we have used rangers, but at some point, maybe if the question comes and it's based on inserting a new client, you see these numbers, although this one are not in sequential order, but just make sure that the first value is unique. What table? Not this. Maybe camps, not camps. Okay, same as this clients with wildcards, you can see that this first column is sequential. It's sequential, so you can always come and get the maximum wildcard number. Oh, this table is long. After getting this wildcard number, and then you just add 1 to it. It's a long table. We are not going to finish now. It's a long table, but that's the idea behind it. I think also sightings as well. Sightings as well. The numbers are in sequential order, so you must always come and get the highest sighting or ranger or wildcard number, and then after getting it, then you increment it by 1. Then after doing so, we have to prepare our DML statement with parameters. That's if the question says write a parameterized query or insert a record using parameters. Then you do your parameters there by including the colon, and then you give your parameter a name, colon, parameter a name, colon, parameter a name. And then now we are obviously going to say use either an ADO command or an ADO use query, because a use query can also execute the commands, né? I mean the DML statements. And then obviously a component has to be hooked up with a connection, and then it must also have a command text which is going to execute. Now, if in our DML or in our query we have parameters, we have to give those parameters some values coming from where we say you should get them from. So in this case, we just have T edit. We have T edit and some date picker there where you can assign those values to our parameters. Yes? You are breaking. I can't hear you.
Info not extracting info.
You are
We're just gonna write what I'm going to display.
I didn't get that. You are breaking. Can you type it in there? I'm not sure if it's my network or yours, but I can't hear anything you are saying. Or maybe if one of you had here, can you please be the intermediator? Can you be the data source? Okay, none of you had her. Okay, as she's busy typing, let me wrap it up. So yes, if in your query, it could be an insert statement or other queries, like your select statement could also somewhere on your word clause. You can also have parameters, your update. Yeah, even your update could have a parameter somewhere. But the idea here is if in your query you are using parameters, before you execute that query, you must give your parameters some values. So in this case, we said the values should come from the T80s and the date picker. Any question could have came and said, for the value of surname, you must get it by doing this and that and that and wara. Ne? So it's not going to be always T80. Sometimes we can give you a combo box. You choose something from a combo box and then you assign it to a particular parameter. And then after giving all your parameters some values, then we execute our command or our query. So now we are using an ADO command, and how to execute a query using an ADO command, we just use the execute method. So we always know that whatever that is going to be executed by an ADO command, in most cases it will return 1. Well, let's say every time you are inserting, you'll always insert one record at a time. Ne? So we'll say one record successfully inserted. Maybe somewhere in the future I can show you how to get this one exactly. How to get this one from the execute. Ne? In future I can show you that. But insert statement will always get one record inserted. Always. Ne? And then this last part is just to ensure that we can see the inserted row. We can see the inserted record. So to see the inserted record, we are saying the data which was being displayed in the database grid, let it be off for a moment. Let it be off. But you must remember that ADODS1 is always going to execute a select all from ranges statement. So now when we switch this off, we are just saying stop displaying the results, stop executing. And then when we say now become true, we are now telling it to execute this command text again. So now it's going to select all from ranges, and then it's going to find out, oh, there was actually a new record which was inserted previously. Then it also retrieves that new record there, and then it gets displayed in the database grid. But now, even though it's in the database grid, we still have to scroll down in the database grid to see it. So to avoid that, we are just saying, okay, now move to the last record, just so that we can really see that that record that we inserted is there. That's all there is to it. Is she still typing or she gave up? But anyway, that's what we did today. That's what we did today. Any questions, ladies and gents? All right. No question.
Sir,
Yes.
can you please scroll up on your code, please?
Up.
Yeah, that part. Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We did this yesterday, ne? Don't be surprised. We did this yesterday.
Yeah, I remember. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So I'm going to stop the. Yes, Collins.
What if we were told to insert a new line, maybe between 3 and 4? How would we do that?
Between 3 and 4.
Yeah, like in the fields.
What is 3 and 4?
Can you? Yeah. You see number 3 and number 4. Maybe create a new record.
Between this.
Yeah, between 3 and 4.
Oh, I know we cannot. We cannot. It will always insert it as the last, ne? We cannot. Or did I ask that in the tutorials? It's impossible. No. No, we cannot. Sometimes I can ask you guys to do some things which are impossible. Please. Some of the things I know I don't think it's possible. No. SQL will always insert a new record at the end. Okay, let me stop the recording.